Have you ever wondered what a lawyer does here in Canada? Or even what goes on the back end of a real estate deal? Well, we're here today with Brent Buss from Assiniboia Law. Brent, tell us a little bit what a lawyer does and introduce yourself.
Well, thank you for having me, Paco. My name is Brent Buss, and as you mentioned, I'm the owner of Assiniboia Law Group. What a lawyer does, that's a very broad question.
What kind of things a lawyer can do and like in different matters?
Right. Well, for example, like my law firm is what I consider a general law firm. So we handle a lot of family law, real estate law, of course. We do wills and powers of attorney for people. We handle estate matters. And also we help small businesses run their companies. So in corporations or business deals, selling of assets, buying of companies, selling of companies, a lot of different things like that.
And what inspired you to become a lawyer in the first place?
Well, I think that goes back to being in high school and watching lawyer shows. I just always seemed to enjoy them. And when I was looking at the university catalog, it's like, that seems like something that would be fun to try. So, I ended up doing that.
And what kind of study or training does before practicing?
Yeah, well, most lawyers have an undergraduate degree, so usually a 3-year degree in arts or science or something like that. Then you have 3 years of law school. After that, you do have to apprentice under a lawyer in what's called an articling year in order to become a lawyer in Manitoba.
And you were saying that lawyers actually don't specialize in anything. They're more like generalists, but they focus in different areas.
Yeah.
What kind of areas?
Yeah, some lawyers will specialize in one thing. Family lawyers, for example, a lot of them just want to focus on family law. Same with criminal or tax lawyers. But then there's a lot of lawyers like myself that are more of a generalist in their practice, which just means that we pick a few different things that seem to mix well together and we focus on a few different things like that.
Brent, let's hone in a little bit in real estate.
Sure.
What goes on behind a deal or in a real estate transaction?
Well, when the lawyer gets involved, usually it's when there's an offer to purchase. So your client is either going to be the buyer or the seller. We get that contract and we usually review it just to make sure that everything looks like it should and that it looks like it's going to be possible to close. But then we also coordinate with all these other different parties. So, for example, if we're talking about a purchase, we'll be coordinating with the client's bank or credit union, their lender, for example. We also want to make sure that property insurance is in place, title insurance, a lot of different things. If they're working with a mortgage broker, we're often in contact with them as well.
When should a buyer reach out to a lawyer? At what point?
Well, probably as early as possible. One of the big things I love to tell, especially people who've never bought a house before, is that you want to be able to have your lawyer look at that contract before you're bound by it. And that takes a little bit of pre-planning and a little bit of knowledge in order to make sure that happens.
I deal with a lot of people that are used to their own things back home or back in their countries. And we usually use notaries instead of lawyers.
Right.
Or lawyers that own notaries. Mm-hmm. How is that different from here?
Very different than in a lot of different countries. For example, I am a notary, but I am also a lawyer. And in Manitoba specifically, you have to be a lawyer to be a notary. So there's not the difference in jobs that there is in other countries.
In Mexico, for example, a notary, one single lawyer deals with the buyer and the seller, as opposed to...
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. So it's very different in Canada. I can represent both sides, but it's not a very common thing. And I can handle all the documentation, so you don't need a notary involved. And the fact that I am a notary doesn't come into the equation at all when we're talking about real estate.
That's important because back in many countries, I'd say, we use only a notary, which is one lawyer for the buyer and the seller, right?
Yeah, and something that's very common in other countries is that everything happens at one time in one place on one day when the transaction is done. That's not the way it happens in Canada. We deal with what we call trust conditions, which means that we can just agree that things will happen in the future under certain rules, and everybody follows those and makes sure that they happen after the fact. So we can have a closing date of today, but maybe only be done in a month from now.
And a lot of there's one specific question that every buyer asks me. For example, in terms of title insurance, what covers title insurance?
Title insurance is probably one of the biggest, most expansive things that we do in the real estate process. It's not just one thing it covers, it's probably about 20 things. And that's where people get very confused. But generally what people want from title insurance is to make sure that, excuse me, what people want from title insurance is to make sure that things like your garage is not on your property line or your neighbor's property line, for example. That's a big one, or usually fences are bad for that. Because if you don't have title insurance and somebody says, I want that garage moved, you could theoretically have to pay to have that garage moved, a couple of meters onto your property line. Other things it covers would be things like if taxes weren't properly paid, or if there was a building permit issue where maybe a permit was granted by the city of Winnipeg, for example, but not properly inspected and closed. Or very commonly in Winnipeg, work was done without a permit, and then somebody reports you to the city, and all of a sudden you now have to open up your basement walls to make sure that's an inspector can come in and look at the plumbing, look at the wiring. And
that's another question. That's true. Sorry to interrupt you, but I get a lot of questions regarding what if it wasn't permitted? Whatever they did. Mm-hmm. Let's say they developed the permit. They developed the basement without a permit. Yep. Who would be responsible when they get an inspection from the city?
Well, and the answer to that is always the homeowner. Whoever owns it when it's discovered is the one who has to deal with that problem. And of course, you could then maybe go after the former owner, try to sue them, but it's extremely difficult. It's very, very difficult.
Okay.
So yes, I always tell people, title insurance, it's usually going to cost you between $200 to $500, and it's the best $200 you'll ever spend.
And I hope you don't spend it, but at least you're covered in case something happens, right?
Well, yeah. I think in 20 years of practice, 4 of my clients have actually had to make a claim under title insurance, but all 4 were very glad they did.
What are some of the most important legal processes you have, like a lawyer handles, or you in personal, you have ever handled?
Well, a lot of different focuses of law really go down to having an agreement and making sure that it's followed and implemented. And that's, of course, real estate to a T, right? Because you have your offer to purchase, whether you're a buyer or a seller. You want to make sure that that contract is clear, that it's possible, like everything is able to be completed by both sides, and that there are no unpleasant surprises. Same thing in my role as a family lawyer, though, for example. Whether you're entering into a relationship or trying to exit one, everybody wants to understand what, the next year, 3 years, 5 years of their lives are going to look like. They want to make sure that everything is fair and equitable, and that at the end of the day, they can start their life the way they want to do that.
And how does a lawyer protect you in case of a property or a piece of real estate?
Well, first and foremost, you have to make sure that the contract is in your favor and that everything is disclosed. When we do have issues, it's usually when somebody has been lying, or there's been an omission. People don't, tell the information that we need, or maybe they just don't know about something. Sometimes we have people who get into financial difficulty and they don't really know that there's been a judgment on their property, which means that somebody's actually registered something against it.
What advice would you give a first-time home buyer?
Well, I would say talk to a lawyer as early as possible just to understand what you should be doing before you get into a contract. I think you need to obviously have a good realtor and have a team of people around you that you can work with and that work well together. So that could be the realtor, the lawyer, the mortgage broker, the insurance agent, all those people together. The sooner you have that team and you have good advice, the less chance there will be of problems.
What should people be looking before signing a contract?
Just basically that they understand it. I think that's one of the biggest things I do for people is I take kind of difficult legal concepts and legalese that they don't understand, and I break it down into simple English.
Yeah,
and that's one of the biggest things for people, that they can actually just understand what's going on and not have any surprises.
I couldn't agree more. We always say let's set expectations so we can avoid problems down the road.
Absolutely.
Have you ever handled complex situations, or what can you give some examples of the most complex?
There's always going to be a few every year that are, not as you expect. There's lots of times that the financing has fallen apart. Maybe somebody's lost a job, or for whatever reason, the bank changes their mind. Then you have to get other financing. Right now we have a law in Canada where certain non-Canadians aren't allowed to own real estate. And for example, they don't realize that there's not enough time left on their work permit to qualify under that law. So then we have to scramble and see, well, can it be put into the spouse's name, for example? And, we've dealt with situations like that. We deal with situations where people are in financial distress and perhaps they don't have enough money from the purchase price to pay off their mortgage. And now all of a sudden they have to find that extra money in order to pay off the mortgage in order to complete the contract.
100% true. For example, if the foreign buyer's ban is in place, you can, like as a foreigner or with certain exceptions, you cannot buy property in Canada.
Correct.
And that is recent kind of from 2023 or so.
Yep.
So it is important to reach out to a lawyer before making the move of purchasing a home.
Yes, and if you're not a permanent resident of Canada or a citizen of Canada, you also just have to think about the timing of your documents. For example, if you're here on a work permit and it's about to expire, we've talked about that. Same thing for a study permit. But also sometimes permanent residencies have to be renewed and you're waiting for that to happen. And we have to make sure that everything happens within the proper time period.
How can people reach out to you, Brent?
Well, you can reach me obviously by telephone at 204-949-3240. Our website is alawgroup.ca, and we have service available in English and Spanish.
That's awesome for all the public. So I'm sure also Mac is going to add that. Make sure to click the link below. I'm going to leave the most frequently asked questions every buyer should know. And thank you very much for watching us. Bye.